topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Who is January Jones? She is not a young, beautiful, talented actress on Mad Men. She is not an older, gorgeous, exotic dancer from the Johnny Carson Show. She is an author, and she wrote Thou Shalt Not Whine, the 11th Commandment, that reached #1 at Amazon.com. She is a reality TV golf personality with World High Stakes Golf televised on HDNet. She is a humorist and winologist expert. She is your featured host today on January Jones Sharing Success Stories. So sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh and listen to Ms. Jones with her eclectic roster of guests as you learn life's lessons. These stories plus sharing equals success. Welcome, and remember, beware, because you are entering the no whining world of January Jones.
Hello, everyone, and I hope you're having a wonderful day today, and it's going to get even better. I'm January Jones, and I'd like to welcome you to our podcast today. Now, for my listeners, let me ask you some questions. Do you realize that Halloween is just 6 days away? 6 days. Tell me, do you have your costume ready? Well, as you can see, I do. Would you like to improvise your own Halloween fun this year? Tell me, have you ever heard about a person called the story Genie? If you have kids or grandkids, this is the show for you today and for them too. Do you wish you could meet someone who can tell you what you need to do at Halloween? And for that matter, maybe for the rest of your life. If you can answer yes or maybe to any of these questions that I've asked, then you are in the right place. And I would like to welcome you to January Jones Sharing Success Stories. So now it's time for you to rest, time for you to relax. Go get some wine, get some cheese and crackers so you can join me in the no wine zone. Now let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. My guest was nearly born at a card game at 2 a.m. in the morning where her mother was playing penny ante poker. Her mom didn't want to leave the game because she was on a heck of a winning streak, but reluctantly, eventually she did leave it because she was going into advanced labor. Apparently that was impairing her judgment for placing bets, and her weak winning streak was off. So they were off to an odd beginning. My guest today started writing short stories on her Uncle Bob's manual typewriter at the age of 7, while the grown-ups, including her mom again, played poker and drank beer. The typewriter kept her quiet and out of everyone's hair. In fact, she hasn't stopped writing since. My guest was first published at the age of 13 in the National Anthology of Young American Poets. I'd like to welcome to you our show today, my guest, the story Genie. Hi, Genie. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm great, January. Thank you so much for having me here. So much fun.
Isn't this fun? And isn't this great? Because now we're both in costumes.
Yes,
and yeah, and I have to give
I'm a cross between a genie and a clown. I'm not. And I have to give a shout out, of course, today
to our mutual friend, Ruth Ann, who lent me this incredible hat. And I'm enjoying wearing it so much. I don't know if I'll ever give it back to her. I'll probably want to keep it for a while.
Well, she's worn it for a Halloween or two, and then I think she's pretty much done with it. I've been trying to convince her to do some other costumes, but she's taking a break this year. So you're perfectly in the right spot at the right time with that hat.
Well, before we start our little visit today, would you share with our listeners how the pandemic has impacted the story Genie, and how has it helped or hindered her career?
Well, the pandemic first sent me home from my day job. Story Genie was the film commissioner for Sarasota County, Florida, and job I loved, and I had originated it in 2007. So along comes to 14 years later, it's 2020, 21, I guess. And we're all working from home because of the pandemic. And I got a phone call and it said, gee, we're really sorry to tell you this, but due to the pandemic and the economic situation, we're going to have to close your division and lay you off. So suddenly, after almost 14 years as the Sarasota County founding film commissioner of the Sarasota Film and Entertainment Office, I was unemployed. Or as I thought the better way to think of it is I was involuntarily retired. So I have been Story Genie as an avocation because early childhood learning, childhood literacy, reading skills is very close to my heart. And I've been doing this for many years. In my spare time, I present to children, I read to children, I give away cases of books, I work with literacy and reading, early learning organizations. So I said, well, this is a great opportunity to have Story Genie get busy and do the things that have been an avocation as her full-time vocation. So that's what I've been doing now for almost 2 years, and it's been wonderful. So,
and I call it the poignant pandemic pause. And so many of my guests have shared with me that even though this pause was unexpected, and I think it was kind of shocking to a lot of us,
it was to me.
It actually has created a new environment. It's created a place where people can sit back, relax, as I encourage everyone, get some wine, cheese, and crackers, think things over and try to go in new directions. And I think, quite frankly, in the long run, a lot of people are going to look back on this pandemic and decide that it actually was a positive thing for them.
Oh, it has been for me, truly. I miss the people I worked with and the projects and the productions that I helped. I kind of have a servant's nature. I love serving the industry, and I miss that part of it. But I love being able to have the freedom, finally, to pursue my children's media wholeheartedly. And it's really my sweet spot. So.
Yeah, and as I know, you've also expanded into your audiobook career,
Right.
And Genie has done several books for me that we'll be promoting later in the show. But tell me, Genie, how did the story Genie originate, and how long have you been doing this character?
Well, when my children were little, I have 2 sons, and from the time they were able to sit in my lap, I was reading to them and I was making stories up, and I would make stories about them, and they giggled and they thought it was just wonderful. Well, they reached an age, I have 3 or 4, and my youngest son said, "What's your real name, Mommy?" And I said, "It's Genie. My real name is Genie." And he went, "Oh, you're a genie. You tell stories. You're a story genie."
Oh,
and I went, "You're right." And that adopted Story Genie as my moniker. And then I went on to later trademark it and make it my brand and create Story Genie Enterprises. But my youngest was the one who was always kind of, thinking out of the box. They're both brilliant boys, just different personalities. And the youngest one also gave me the title for my very first children's book. He was being particularly obnoxious one day when he was 3. And I sat him down and I said, "Why are you being so mean to me? Mommy's never mean to you. Why are you being mean to me?" And he said, dead serious, "It's not my fault. I got bit by the meanie bug."
Oh, okay.
And I said, "Well, you just invented that one right out of thin air." So my first children's book was The Meanie Bug and Other Stories. And that's based on my youngest son, Keel, when he was 3. He called himself the Meanie Bug, and I put him in a book. So
Okay.
be careful what you tell your mom. So that's where Story Genie came from. And that's how all the storytelling really originated in entertaining my children.
Okay, well, now let me ask you this question. I know you do TV and you do music and books. Uh, what do you favor the most? What do you enjoy doing the most? I'm sure it's probably whatever you're doing at the
At the
moment.
moment, right.
But
I
if you
actually,
had to pick,
yeah, I have to confess, just about everything I do, whether I'm writing songs or writing rhymes or doing poems or doing children's stories or doing books, everything tends to rhyme. So I've always had this poet personality ever since I was really.
sorry.
That's okay. That's all good. That's your fans. They're saying we love you. We love you, January.
I hope
Um,
so.
So I've always loved things that rhyme, and whether I'm doing lyrics for songs or I'm doing silly stories for kids or I'm doing right now I'm working on a television special, and there's 16 original songs in it that I've written, all new Christmas songs that no one has ever heard, and of course they all rhyme. So I love rhyming in all those many forms. So I guess I'm more of a poet than anything, but because I stretch it into all forms and genres of different use of poetry. That's what I do the most and what I like the best is rhyming. As when my children were younger, my boys would say, "Mom, can you rap?" And I'd go, "Yo, yeah, I can rap. What do you want me to rap about?" So we would have a lot of fun with that. So even as a story genie, I learned how to rap to entertain my sons.
Yeah, well, you can always say you could wrap them on the head if they get out of line.
That's right. Yes.
What about other genres? Do you do things does the Story Genie do things other than children's content? Do you do things like
I do actually. Children as I said, it's always been an avocation to help children become more literate, read better, speak better, have the power over words. I mean, that's where my heart is. But I love to do things for older audiences too. I've got a novel series that is a murder mystery series set in Las Vegas and based on my main character, Legs Barkley. For 7 years in a row, she was voted best legs in Las Vegas. And then she got tired of being a piece of meat in a 3-ounce costume and decided she'd go into criminal investigations and becomes a private eye. So the Legs Barkley murder mystery series, all set in Las Vegas, is it's for grown-ups. It's still got a great heart. It's got humor and warmth, and it's not a grody book. It's not something you'd be afraid to leave on the table when your 13-year-old picks it up. But and then I also have for the middle age group, for the YA, young adults, YA genre, I have a kind of a sci-fi fantasy story with young teens, and it's called Chameleon Tomes. And it's a 3-book series about a young girl about 15 who discovers, in her love of the library, she lives in the library whenever she's not in school, whenever she discovers an ancient book, an ancient tome, and it's sealed with a leather band and a gold medallion, and she manages to pick the lock, pop it open, and get totally zapped into an existence she never expected. Okay. So the Chameleon Tomes is kind of fantasy sci-fi. And then I also have a mythology series that is set to be 3 books, set to be 3 book installments, but it's actually meant to be a TV series, and it's magical and it's mysterious and it's devil may care. It's kind of there are mercenaries involved, but they're of all different species. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of mythology in it. Everything.
Well, recently, this past week, sadly, we've lost the wonderful, incredible Angela Lansbury.
Oh my goodness, I love her so.
Yeah, and her murder, she wrote, what an incredible gift that was to the world.
It really is.
That's a genre that will be wide open now, so hopefully you'll jump in there with your murder mysteries.
Well, right? As you did, can I? Oh, you go.
Right, so we're going to talk about Thou Shalt Not Whine, the 11th Commandment, and this has just come out in an audiobook, and it's available audiobook, and it was read by the Story Genie.
Lately, there's a whining epidemic in our world. People are even whining about whining. Are you sick and tired of listening to everyone whining all the time? So was January Jones, the author of Thou Shalt Not Whine, the 11th Commandment, that reached #1 at Amazon.com. Ms. Jones based her book on a survey of the top 10 things that people whine about at all ages and all stages of life. January is a success coach that can tell you how to help others. When you buy Thou Shalt Not Whine, the 11th commandment, you'll find out what people whine about and how to stop them from whining. This is the perfect gift book to give or get for any occasion. Thou Shalt Not Whine was voted the best gift to be given anonymously for those special people in your life. Ms. Jones is an internationally known author in the style of Irma Bombeck, specializing in housewife humor, with her book being published in Korea and China. You can find Thou Shalt Not Whine at Amazon.com.
I love your
Welcome back to the No Wine Zone, and we're here visiting with the Story Genie. And she is not a whiner because she is a winner. And now, Story Genie, would you please share with our listeners your contact information, how they can find you at your website, and where they can get your books?
Certainly. It's www.story, S-T-O-R-Y, Genie, G-E-N-I-E, storygenie.com. And you can find all sorts of things on there, including the Christmas special we're working on, children's books, different other things that we're working on. Lots of stuff to look at. Kids have fun on there. You can even see an episode of the Story Genie and Friends TV show, and kids 12 and under especially love it.
Oh, wonderful. And that website is on the screen right now. Copy it down and be sure to go to it. It's incredible. I've been there, and you'll enjoy it. Plus, your children and your grandchildren will love it.
Nieces and nephews and kids down the street.
Everyone.
You see in the grocery store with little kids, whatever, they'll all be happy.
Tell me, Jeannie, how did literacy and language skills become the core foundation for your project when you started out on Story Genie?
Well, I ended up with both of my little boys being very verbal, which of course I am too. I mean, they come by it naturally, but very verbal. And they would talk all the time, talk, and they would make, very interesting conversations. They were very literate. They liked books. I read to them from the time they were seriously 6 or 8 weeks old, holding them in my lap. And I learned how much they loved to play with words. Wordplay became a real building block for their own vocabularies, to the point where my oldest son, Casey, when he was about 7, picked up a copy of a sci-fi book that I had on the coffee table by Robert Heinlein called Starship Troopers. And he picked it up and he started reading it. And I said, "You can't read that." And he said, "Yes, I can." And I said, "Well, read it to me." And he opened it up to the beginning and he read the first page. And the only word he stumbled on was globothermal war.
Okay.
And he sounded it out very well. Globo, thermal. And I said, every child at the age of 7 should be able to pick up and read all kinds of things, not just what they're given in school or homework assignments. And I started studying on early childhood learning. Keel was reading by the time he was about 2.5 or 3. Casey had been reading since he was about 3. And it became a real joy to learn about the organizations that are out there. I mean, it's going back to Reading Rainbow and going back to Reading is Fun, Demental, and things like that. There were so many great sites, and I decided I want to entertain children, but I want to enrich them. I want them to become smarter. And the way you become smarter in this world is having command over the language. It's all about your power over words, whether you're in sales, teaching, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, whether you're a entrepreneur, whether you are an artist or a performer or a sports person. The better you express yourself, the more power you have in public speaking, in speaking about what matters to you, the more powerful your life is. You are empowered by language, literacy, and power over words. So that became my mission.
Oh, it's a wonderful mission. And I feel like to most grandmothers and mothers, the more you expose your children to the written word, especially in this day and age where they're all walking around with their little phones and their iPads. Just the joy of sitting down quietly with a book and entering a new world. It's quite a wonderful gift that you can give them. And so many of these books you'll find, just as you'll find when you see Jeannie's books, they're illustrated so incredibly beautiful that it's really enticing to children to be exposed to these kind of things.
Very
And
stimulating to their imaginations.
oh yeah, it is. Yeah. Now, what literacy programs mean the most to you now these days?
Well, I think that children that don't have access to a lot of opportunity for books of their own, to own books, to read books, to take them home, to make notes in them, to draw pictures from them. Children that are a little underprivileged in terms of that access are really being shortchanged. So I donate a lot of books to different organizations, especially organizations that are shelters for single mothers with children. I like to give books to the schools that I speak to, the kids that I visit there, especially elementary age students. And I'll take a box of 40 books, make sure that everyone who's there leaves with a book that doesn't cost them anything. I like to work with the libraries. But there are some great organizations out there. For example, the Nicholas Children's Hospital, Jack Nicklaus is how it's spelled, like the golfer. The Nicholas Children's Hospital, they have a wonderful reading program for kids. And, there's just so many out there. Reach Out and Read. And I used to actually read for the blind through a public service program where we would read. There were several of us that were actors and performers, and we would go in and we would record radio programs, reading for the blind. And people that couldn't see the newspaper or a certain magazine, who didn't have access to Braille or something like that, we would read all the newspapers. We would read all the magazines, all the articles. So no matter what age you are, the stimulation of the written word is awesome. And it's powerful. And we all deserve to have it. But, you can go out, anybody interested, you can go out and Google children's reading and literacy organizations, and you'll see all kinds of them. I just caution parents sincerely from the bottom of my heart, whatever your children are looking at online, look at it with them. Be careful what those children are seeing, because there are predators out there that are looking for children, and they're looking for young people for bad reasons. And they lure them in with things that are colorful and pretty and funny and whatever. Be there, be present, and make sure they're not running around surfing the net without you, because they could be putting themselves in harm's way. With print books, of course, you know exactly what they're looking at, but ebooks and podcasts and so forth.
That's good. That's very good advice. And speaking about your books, you were kind enough to give one to my grandson, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. And if you're looking for any books for children around Christmas time coming up for the holidays, go to storygenie.com and you'll find many, many things that would be wonderful gifts to give this season.
And if you're a Kindle reader and you subscribe to like Kindle Unlimited, where you get a lot of books for free, the Meanie Bug book, which is normally a $14.95 hardback gold leaf. I mean, this is quite an expensive book. This is free as an ebook right now to Kindle Unlimited people. So you can download it for your kids, and all the color illustrations and so forth, everything in there is in the ebook. The whole thing is scanned in. So it's the whole book electronically, and get it for free and let them read it on Christmas Day and goof around and play the games with the characters.
That's perfect, because that you can put on their iPad, right, and that'll be a great way to entice them. Right now we're going to take a break, and we're going to hear about who killed Kennedy. Who do you think had the motive, the money, and the means to commit the perfect crime of the last century?
Let me ask you a question. Are you still wondering who killed Kennedy? Over 50 years later, the assassination is still a mystery. It is unfinished business for our country. Now, get ready for a theory that you've never heard before, but will make more sense than any other conspiracy theory that you've ever heard in the past. January Jones speaks the unspeakable in her book, Jackie, Ari, and Jack, The Tragic Love Triangle, connecting Jackie and Aristotle Onassis romantically prior to JFK's assassination. Did you know that Ari was Jackie's guest in the White House during the JFK funeral? He was the only non-family member who was invited by Jackie to stay there during the funeral. Aristotle Onassis was one of the wealthiest men in the world, with the means, the motive, and the money to order an assassination that was the perfect crime of the last century. Ari needed class, and Jackie needed cash. They were perfect for each other. Now, what is Camelot? It is but another tragic love triangle. Jackie, Ari, and Jack is available at JanuaryJones.com, Amazon.com, and audiobooks.com, read by Ms. Jones.
Welcome back, and I want to share with everyone that the story Genie has just finished doing the Christina, and it's available at audiobooks. And coming up for next year, we will be having Oh No, Jackie O will be on audiobook, and that'll be the 60th anniversary of the assassination. Now, Jeannie, let's talk a little bit about the real hard truth, because people say, oh, children's books, that must be so easy.
Yeah.
And, oh, anyone could do that. Well, I, for a fact, know that is not true. Why don't you give us your slant on writing a children's book versus an adult book?
I really believe truly that writing children's content, children's books is the hardest market to break into, unless you're a celebrity, a star, a politician, or a member of the royal family.
Yeah.
There are so many celebrities out there right now writing children's books, well, or using a ghostwriter and putting their name on it. Some of them legitimately do write their own stuff, but the market is glutted with celebrities, everything from Jamie Lee Curtis to John Lithgow to singers to Madonna to Princess Sarah Ferguson, known as Fergie. Everybody's writing children's books, and they're putting these celebrity big names on it, and all the publishers are gobbling them up and putting them out. And that's fine. But what happens is someone that is an unknown person or not a celebrity or not a famous rich individual or a politician or a princess or whatever it might be, those of us that are just ordinary people trying to write children's books, we're just shuffled to the side. It's very, very hard to get any kind of mainstream publisher to get that kind of pickup on your work. Mm-hmm. So, we have to take a turn at looking at self-publishing, which 20 years ago, it was shockingly bad idea. Don't be a self-publisher. Vanity press, they used to call it. That's not what it is at all anymore. Mm-hmm. What it is now, it is an open, free market for writers to take the chance that the public will like their work. And the public will decide, the consumers will decide, the children will decide, not some big corporate conglomerate stuck up in New York or Chicago. With all due respect to them, they do a wonderful job. But those of us that are little people from the old people side of the world, unknown people, we have a chance to forge our own path. And it's still hard. Don't let me kid you. It's still hard. You know yourself. Amazon is just so wonderful for new writers, struggling writers, experimenting writers that want to find out, can they do it? It's time consuming. You have to have the real honest to goodness content. You have to be prepared to self-publish and lay it out, get the help of someone for a professional cover. You've got to do it well and proofread it and make sure it's perfect so that you don't embarrass yourself by putting something out there that is not perfect. Mm-hmm. That makes others go, oh, well, if they'd gone with a publisher, it would have been wonderful. Make it wonderful no matter what. But children's content, it's also very strict. You have to be careful what you say, how you say it, what you show, what age group specifically you're targeting. Is it a baby's book? Is it a picture book? Is it a toddler book? Is it a preschool book? Is it a kindergarten to third grade book? Is it a fourth grade to seventh grade middle school book? Is it a 8th, 9th, 10th tweenie book? Is it a young adult book? Or is it a true teenager's book that needs to understand whatever maturity level the teenagers are targeting actually are? Because teenagers in New York City have a whole different mindset and exposure to the world in general than teenagers in podunk nowhere that are in a little bubble of different culture, different pace of life, that kind of thing. So you really have to know your market. You have to know your kids, because never, ever teach down, talk down, or write down to children. Bring them up to your level and assume that they are smart enough and fast enough and interested enough to learn what is new to them and to enjoy what is mature to them, whatever their age might be. Don't teach down or condescend.
If you bring them up, it's just amazing that they will soar. And it'll be an incredible experience. And, I self-published my first book when I was 50 years ago, 50 years old, which feels like 50 years.
Just last year. It's just last year.
And self-publishing then was just a real challenge because at that point in time, as far as self-publishing, the only name that I would recognize would be Mark Twain. And, Mark Twain could write on toilet paper and it'd be published and be
Right.
successful. So it was a whole challenge. But nowadays, it is amazing. Once you go, as you and I both know, Jeannie, you go to Amazon and it's all laid out there.
Right.
Anyone can do it. If I can do it, anyone can do it. And it's something that you should look into. And you're never too old to do
Never.
it. But the big key here, and I think Jeannie will agree with me, is you have to, guess what? You have to sit down and you have to write. And when you start off, it's kind of like just get it on paper.
Right.
As you know, Jeannie, you don't worry about punctuation, editing, all of
That's
that.
what your first draft is all about. Get it down on paper. Get it down.
Yeah, and it'll take off. As far as hard copy books, I kind of think they're becoming passé. I mean, I live with my iPad. I take it with me everywhere, as just like my teenage grandchildren do. It's fun to hold a hard copy book in your hand, but in general, and you and I are seeing this swing to audio, and audio is just taking off. It's amazing what's happening in that field.
It is. It truly is. SurveyMonkey, which is an interesting site, and I've used it in business many times to take surveys of different people's different opinions. They recently did a survey about ebooks versus hard copy print books. Is print dying? Do people buy print books anymore? And it was very interesting that what they found out was the majority of people, 58% of people, have an e-reader, whether it's a tablet or a note or a Kindle or a laptop or a iPad or whatever they're carrying around. 58% of people surveyed had an e-reader and they read on it. But half of all people surveyed still read both print books and ebooks. Audiobooks is another field altogether. Audiobooks is coming on so strong right now that in America, just in the last year, it passed the $1.5 billion mark for audiobooks. $1.5 billion in audiobooks. Now, still compared to the volume of print books and ebooks, it's teeny. Audiobooks represent a very small fraction of the overall books, but it is coming on so fast because you can listen to them when you're driving, when you're traveling, when you're on a plane, a train, a bus, when you're waiting for the doctor's office and you don't want to rattle the pages or ruffle the pages or be going through your Kindle or whatever you might be doing. Audiobooks are becoming enormously assertive and aggressive, taking up a big share of the market. So for those of you that want to do an ebook or you want to do a children's book or whatever kind of book you want, plan it the smart way. Think of it as a triple hitter. Think of it as a triple play. Start out with your print book, sure. Make it into a print book. Amazon will do a paperback book for you free of charge, and then they just take a percentage of how many copies they sell. They'll print it on demand. Doesn't cost you anything but your time and your talent. And then turn that into an ebook. It's pretty easy. Upload the manuscript, turn it into an electronic book, an ebook they can read on a reader. And then turn it into an audiobook. Hire a professional audio narrator who will produce it professionally. Or if you're the author, read it yourself because nobody knows it better than you do. And if you're comfortable reading it yourself, put your personality there. But think of it as a triple hitter. Go ahead with the paperback, and then move up to an ebook, and then put the frosting on the cake with an audiobook. And you will find the whole audience. You'll find them all out there. You'll get them all.
As I've shared with our listeners, all of my books are being put into audio at this point. And of course, Jeannie's doing a wonderful job doing it for me. I've done one myself, and that was enough.
They are not easy. Just like children's books, people cannot assume all I do is sit down in front of a microphone and just read it out loud. Kind of, not really. You better know how to pronounce every word. You better have the ability of a professional actor to put the heart and the soul and the meaning and the personality and the character and the charisma or the villainy or whatever it might be into those characters. You better be able to jump in there and live through them when you're doing an audiobook. And even if it's just a narrative, even if it's a documentary, even if it's a political book, you're going to have to understand what you're reading, and you're going to have to read it to the best of your ability. And if you don't, you edit and you edit and you edit until it's perfect. Or Amazon won't even accept it. If you've got mistakes in it, or the sound is not good, or the narrative is not good, or the editing is sketchy, it's not going up. So do it right. It's not everything worth doing is worth doing right.
Yeah. There's a whole process to it, and it is amazing, and the potential is unlimited. And I'm still at that stage of life where we still get the morning newspaper. We both get our paper. He reads one, I read the other, and of course, everyone says, "Well, why do you do that?" Well, the reason is we want to get the daily puzzles.
There you go. And Sudoku, don't forget Sudoku.
Yeah, so we get most of our news, obviously, from the internet, but we're still in touch. We're at that generation that we're doing puzzles so we can keep our brain matter working. Now, for my listeners, let me ask you a question. Have you ever met someone who was unforgettable? Have you ever met a priceless personality? Have you ever met someone who was unforgettable? Someone who has touched your heart and soul? People who have faced difficult problems? People who have struggled to find solutions? People who fearlessly shared their stories? People who have not only informed you, but inspired you? People who have priceless personalities? I have been fortunate to host an internet radio talk show called January Jones Sharing Success Stories, and it has been my privilege to interview hundreds of guests. My guests have shared their stories, their struggles, their secrets, and their successes in their own words. In this book, we're talking about people dealing with problems such as incest, molestation, runaway kids, child abuse, drug abuse, polygamy, unemployment, scandal, and starting over. Then there are my guests dealing with difficult physical struggles such as blindness, cancer, and birth defects that are beyond traumatic. My guests have all been exciting, eclectic, and energizing. They have amazed, amused, and even astonished me. I have adored getting to meet them, and I adore sharing them with you.
Attention all listeners. Priceless Personalities, Success Stories Shared by January Jones, Volume 2 is now available at Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle editions. You'll be able to meet 10 amazing people who will be sharing their own personal stories with all their struggles, successes, and solutions, sprinkled with lots of humor and hope. Priceless Personalities features a teenager who becomes one of the famous Supremes from Motown, a nurse who as a humorist helps people to heal, an inspiring laughter yoga instructor, a mother dealing with the loss of a child, an incredible motivational speaker, a woman who married 5 times, a gifted paranormal nurse, a wise economist, a funny female humorist, along with an older man sharing his sweet childhood in the Deep South. January's guests are all amazing and amusing. You will never forget meeting them. Go to Amazon.com for your own priceless experience.
Welcome back with one of my very favorite priceless personalities, the story Genie. Now, let me ask you a question, Genie. What can parents, and this one's for grandparents, what can we do to bring out the creative genius in our grandchildren?
Well, it's kind of a 2-step process. First, watch them. What do they love to do? What is it they really enjoy doing? If you've got a child that's banging on pots and pans and making noise with objects, you may have a percussive personality that wants to be a drummer one day. If you have a child that's building with Legos and string and they're taking pieces of paper and they're making things and they're putting all their little cars with all their little toys in their room and building a city, you may have an architect coming up. If they're singing their own songs and making up their own words, you may have a lyricist, a composer. If you see them hanging out in the kitchen and wanting to help mommy stir this and break the eggs, you might have a chef coming up. Watch for what they love, because if you do what you love, you'll always love what you do. But every person, I firmly believe, has an aptitude that's special to them. And sometimes the aptitude is obviously in the entertainment industry, with singing and dancing and writing scripts or writing songs or composing music, or loving ballet or having, those are all pretty obvious because they're so extroverted. But all those other aptitudes are out there too. There are kids that have gifts of mathematics and they love numbers, and you see them when they're little and they're counting things and they're putting things together and they're numbering up, lining up the blocks with the numbers on them. You have a future mathematician on your hands. You have kids that are mixing stuff up in the kitchen, and what happens if I put this blue food coloring over here with the egg? Does it turn, and it turns green? You might have a scientist coming up. So what we need to be, first of all, is really observant and tuned in to what is it that gives them joy or holds their attention or fascinates them, or they keep going back to it, because that's who they are. That's their gift. That's their aptitude. Watch for that. And then when you see it, nurture it. And if I can remember with one of my sons, he was just a Lego kid. He just wanted to build and build and build and build and build. Well, he ended up not being an architect, but he ended up being a musician who's now building his own sound stage or sound studio. He's building it himself. He's built it in a couple of other places where he does it. He's also a musician that has put together and constructed the special lighting equipment and programmed it to go in time with the music. And he has constructed things that may be electronic, but his desire to construct and make things from scratch goes all the way back to when he was 2 years old doing those. So they'll tell you, unintentionally otherwise, who and what they are. And then think future. Think if the family is middle class and their income is middle class and they may have the gifts to go to a major college that will cost more than they can afford, start saving for it when they are 5. Start saving for it. Start putting, like Florida has an incredible fund where you can prepay their college education. Just start putting money in the bank for them when they're really young. And then when they reach high school level and they graduate, their college education is waiting, and the state has contributed some matching dollars. I
didn't know about that. That's an amazing opportunity program. As you were talking about children at a young age, well, as you know, in my family, our granddaughter, from like the time she was 3 years old, fell in love with ballet. And now that she's 18, she spent the summer dancing with the Sarasota Ballet. And I know your grandson is at the Ringling Art Academy University doing incredible artistic work.
And so he was drawing from the time he was tiny. He would draw on the computer with like Bob the Builder, where you put the pipes together and made something. And I can remember him at about 2.5, and he would be doing things with the mouse, not looking at the mouse, looking at the screen, moving the mouse around, making things on the screen. And he'd look at us and go, "This go this way?" Mm-hmm. And he always was drawing pictures and drawing people and drawing animals. And by the time he was 13, his freehand drawing was astounding. And when we gave him the chance to go to a part-time to a summer program for Ringling College, he fell in love with it and knew where he wanted to be. So
now, let me ask you a question. A lot of parents, I hear this question, they're curious to know if it is a good idea to expose talented, if they think their children are talented, to some kind of acting, give them an opportunity to perform, to see if it is actually their aptitude. What are your thoughts on that?
I think community theater, for example, and plays that take place in school, those are a great opportunity for kids to get out of their shell. And sometimes children that are very shy and introverted, they find if they can be in the chorus and they can be in the background and they can sing along on Music Man, or they can dance along on Oliver, they don't have to be self-conscious, and they don't have to be right in the focus in the forefront that might embarrass them, but they gain self-esteem, they gain confidence, they gain a comfort level of being in a public forum. So it helps everything. It just helps their presence of self. It gives them a presence they might not otherwise have. And then they may discover, hey, I'm star material. I'm going to get out there and audition for the lead. I'm going to get out there and audition. Or they may discover, wow, I love the music. Maybe I can learn about the orchestra. Maybe I could learn to play a kettle drum. Maybe I could learn to play a guitar or play the piano. So they're exposed to music. They're exposed to wardrobe. I've seen kids that are fascinated by how wardrobe masters and mistresses put together costumes and make something out of nothing. It's magic. It's just magic. So that's seamstress and tailor work and working with fabrics. I think it's always a great opportunity for kids to be in a public forum, whether it's sing in a choir at church or sing in your synagogue, sing in your mosque if you have a music organization. Put yourself out there and raise your comfort level a little bit at a time, and find things that maybe surprise you with how much you enjoy them.
Okay. And I know I could just talk to you forever, which is what we usually do when we're together. Just briefly touch on how do people find their muse? I know that's a loaded question, but any ideas that would help people who are looking?
Sure. Sometimes you just have to pay attention to yourself. Sometimes you need to sit quietly. Don't be busy, and you're on the computer and you're paying bills and you're doing this and you're looking at social media and you're busy all the time. Sometimes just being quiet with yourself and thinking, we'll go out and sit in the sunshine if it's not too hot, or go, lay down on the bed and put on some sounds of nature on your sleep machine or something, and think about, what do I really like? What do I like to do? What am I doing that I don't like? I mean, I had a profession one time. I worked for 9 years in a certain field that paid very well, and it was a very professional, respected field of career. But I was so unhappy. It was so non-creative, and it involved people that were in conflict and people that were in opposition to one another, and it just made me unhappy. And I finally had to say, why am I doing this? If it's just for the money, I need to get out of this. But I had to hold myself accountable and do some thinking. And my muse, I realized, that sat on my shoulder and listened and talked to me and made me happy, was in the creative fields, in the fields of entertainment, in writing, in music, in acting, in performing, but also behind the scenes. I discovered I loved being behind the scenes and doing script writing it for someone else to perform to, and music lyrics, writing it for someone else to sing. So you have to dig down into who and what you are.
Yeah, and I think we both agree that everyone, and we're speaking to all of you out there, you all have a special aptitude. I can't say that word. Maybe mine isn't speaking on radio, but try different things, and find out something will just click for you, and it'll be amazing. And you have to just expose yourself and open up and let the big wide world right in there, and try dip your toe in the talent. Call it your talent toe.
Your talent toe. And if you love eating and cooking, maybe take a chef's class.
Yeah.
If there's something you love to do, but you don't think you do it very well, take a class. The vocational technical colleges are amazing. Suncoast Technical College, Manatee Technical College, technical institutes, they call them now. You can learn to do all kinds of stuff. And most of the major colleges have continuing education for adults, where you can cherry pick classes that you like. You don't have to go back to school full time. Go take a course in how to paint. Go take a course in ancient Egyptology or something. Ring that bell. Ring that bell that's in your head.
Yeah. I hope we're inspiring and motivating all of you. And in closing, I want to thank my amazing guest, the Story Genie. And remember to go to her website, storygenie.com.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed our show today, and we've tried to be informative. And my gosh, we've really tried to inspire you. My upcoming guests will all be eclectic, exciting, energizing, just like the Story Genie. Next Tuesday at 2 p.m., Jan Wallen will be back with us, and she will share with us how to raise your rates without losing clients. It's pretty tricky. Now, my 79-year-old thought for the day. This one is for my kids. Sometimes my kids laugh because they think I'm a little crazy. But I will have the last laugh because what they don't know, crazy is in their DNA. So now, thank you for entering the No Wine Zone with us today. Please remember to share our stories and our show with everyone you know. And remember, you have to immediately stop whining and then start smiling. And if that doesn't work, then you can just start eating chocolate. Lots and lots of chocolate, especially with Halloween coming up. Now, Story Genie, goodbye for today, and I look forward to having you back with us again. To our listeners, take care, stay safe until we meet again.
Thank you.
We want to thank you for listening to January Jones Sharing Success Stories. Always remember Ms. Jones' personal mantra, if you can think it, you can do it. That's what all of our guests have done with their lives, and so can you. You are the ultimate success coach in your own life. All you need to do will be to start sharing your own story with your family and friends. We hope that our guest stories will encourage you to explore an equation in your future that will combine your creativity plus connecting with others will enable you to be successful too. Always remember, your passion plus your purpose will equal prosperity as you explore the wonderful world of January Jones.